Hi, I'm Dara.
I'm James.
And I'm Mark.
And welcome to the very first episode of Movie Friends. Today's movie is Casablanca. Casablanca was released in 1942. It's a movie about a place called Casablanca in Morocco during the early start of World War II. It's where many refugees have fled, and they're stuck waiting in limbo for a chance to get to America. Rick, played by Humphrey Bogart, is an American who owns a popular nightclub there. He suddenly meets his former lover Ilsa, played by Ingrid Bergman, who needs his help in getting her and her husband, Victor, played by Paul Henry, out of the country before the Nazis find them. Rick contemplates helping them as he entangles himself in a love triangle. Yeah, what do you guys think?
James?
Yeah, so I see this movie as having a few layers to it.
Okay.
One of them is the love story between Rick and Ilsa, which is complicated by the fact that she's married to someone else, so they can't
Right.
really be together, or can they? And another one is the refugees escaping from the Nazis story, and Rick having to decide, is he going to help her, even though he feels kind of betrayed by her as well? And the third layer is the conflict within Rick himself and his personality. He appears to be so cynical and stoic, but at the same time also hurt by Ilsa, and yet he also does some good things. And is he going to do the right thing by helping more people, such as her and her husband, escape?
Right. Or not. We don't know. Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. It's a touching movie.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
touching because the main character, Rick, goes through a lot of changes in the course of the movie. I won't spoil the movie for you, but by the end, by the very, very end, in my opinion, he's a different person and a more admirable person than he was earlier.
So that's character development.
Yes, yes. Very good character development in his.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw
Yeah.
that. He was very cynical in the beginning at
Yes.
first.
Well, part of that was his love affair really hurt him so deeply that he
Right.
became a cynical person.
Right, right.
Because in Paris he wasn't as cynical, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So one
They're
other
beautiful.
thing about this movie that to me is super important to talk about
Okay.
is one of the things that's important to me in general for movies is have a character-driven story, have a personality-driven story.
Yes.
So I'm not going to say it's perfect about all that,
Yeah.
but Humphrey Bogart playing Rick, he stole the show to me. He did such a great job playing this cynical, stoic, kind of reluctant hero, you might say.
Yes.
To me, when I see him, I also really want him to be a detective, maybe as I saw Maltese Falcon at one point. But he did a great job in this one too.
Yeah.
And so he's just so much fun to watch.
Some of
how he
his
plays
lines are
characters.
funny too.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mentioned some of them before.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he has good dialogue.
Yeah, he did a good job. A lot of his lines were so good. They were both truthful and funny.
Right.
Dramatic but yet funny.
Right. Oh, that reminds me of something. So that does remind me of how back in those days how people talked. Like it was just a different way of
Okay.
speaking.
Would you say it was more formal, or what would you say?
Yeah, kind of formal, maybe matter of fact type of way. And
Okay.
I just like how in the movie they would like ever so slightly like roast each other.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Using a lot of analogies, I think. Yeah, there was a scene where Rick was telling that drunk girl to go home. And,
Oh yeah.
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 And I remember after he got her in the cab, he walked over to smoke and then talk with the French captain.
Okay.
And the French captain was like, very.
Is that Like police chief.
Yeah, the police chief or
Renault,
the
whatever.
prefect or
Yeah, the
whatever.
prefect,
Yeah. Yeah, so he was like, what did he say? He's like, you're being so frivolous, just throwing women away like that or
Yes, he
something.
did say that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like he had like so many, women to
Right.
to pull on
Right.
from. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And speaking of dialogue, this movie has such iconic dialogue as well
Yes.
that I haven't seen this movie until recently, but except for when I was 10,
Oh wow.
and
Yeah.
I didn't really understand the movie at that point.
Yeah.
But over the years, I feel like all of this dialogue is so familiar, and I keep hearing it somehow, sometimes at least.
I know there's a lot of shows that quote
Yeah.
Casablanca
And
a lot.
so when I watch the movie, I think, oh, that's where that came from. Oh, that's where that came from.
That's good.
So, for
That's right.
example,
Mm-hmm.
here's Looking at You, Kid.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
from this
yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
And apparently,
Yeah.
you were saying Bogart came up with that himself by a natural interaction with the actress.
Yeah, they were during the in between sets when they were just on the set doing nothing, waiting for the next take.
Yeah.
Bogart was teaching Ilsa,
Or the actress.
the actress
Yeah.
Ingrid Bergman,
Yep.
how to play chess. And when they were doing that, he would say, "Here's Looking at You, Kid."
Yeah.
So like, it got into the movie, spilled into.
Yeah, I think that's great. And another example is something like, this could be the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Yes.
That's from the movie?
Yes, it is. And they actually had to dub that. The writers gave the producer 2 lines to choose from to end the movie with, and they didn't get it to the producer until the movie was done. So Bogart had to come back in and dub that after the movie was finished.
Oh wow.
Well, it worked.
Yeah, it worked. It worked well.
The intro to his cafe was interesting. When we first get introduced into the cafe, there's this tracking shot, and then it cuts to like different people and patrons in
Right.
the cafe
Right.
and their stories. Well, not maybe their stories, but a little bit of
A little bit of their stories.
of their
a little
situation.
bit, that
people
couple from Switzerland
Right,
and
right.
other couples there, and
people trying to sell things.
guy who
and-
was the pickpocket.
right. Yeah, that was funny.
I was touched by the young lady who she and her husband were trying to get an exit visa, and she had obviously done something with the prefect in order to get the exit visa.
So they're
Oh,
suggesting
implied.
yes, yes.
implying
The code of the time, like I said
Yes,
before,
yes.
the code of the time wouldn't allow explicit
Yeah.
things. But she went to Rick and sat down and said, "Can I talk to you?" And
Yeah.
what if a young lady would do something
Yeah.
that her husband wouldn't approve of, but she kept it in her heart all of her life? That was what she was implying. That, and we see earlier too that the prefect, whenever there's a young lady in distress who needs an exit visa, his assistant would come to him and say, "Here's a case," and the guy would smile and
Yeah, it'd be like show her in.
get his tie ready and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, I had this naive thought of those times back in those times being like very conservative, and
Yeah.
when I saw this film, I was like,
as
"Whoa!"
if the movie would be more wholesome.
Exactly,
sense.
exactly. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and well, I was really surprised. Like during the first scene, like when I watched it the first time many years ago, when in the opening scene, there's actually someone does die, and I was really shocked and surprised. I was like, "Wow, that is
That did happen in movies back then, huh?
yeah, it's interesting."
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh boy.
Another thing I noticed was some of the outfits that some of the girls would be wearing. I noticed some of them would be showing a lot of skin, and I was thinking, wasn't that not allowed back then?
Yeah,
But I guess I'm just naive. I have a naive thought
yeah.
of the times back then.
Okay.
But I liked it. I like that.
They're allowed to show their heels.
The heels.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
this one girl had like a midriff, and you could see her tummy, and
Oh,
yeah,
really?
yeah, she was pretty hot though. But yeah,
Cool.
speaking of hot, Ingrid Bergman. My God. Yeah, like the first
She
thing,
played Ilsa in the movie.
Ilsa. Yeah, she
Yeah.
played Ilsa, and every time I watched her, I was like, okay, she has this great way of using her eyes
Hmm.
and to act,
Yeah.
and her smile as well. And I just kept thinking, wow, she has like a really incredible smile.
Yeah.
And I didn't um well, yeah, that's what I noticed. And then later on in the movie, they kind of explain a little bit of why um or how she got that smile.
Yeah. 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 Well, and
um
she was they did a lot in some of the reading I did, the background reading,
yeah.
especially Wikipedia. They said that they took a lot, the photographers took a lot more attention to her, and they used like a
Oh.
soft glaze when they shot and took more time with it and everything. So
Oh yeah,
that
it
was
was.
her website says that that was her most endearing role of all her movies.
Oh wow. Yeah, I noticed like every time there was a close-up shot of her eyes, like
Yeah.
it looked like it had like some kind of gloss
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in
No, that
there.
was done on purpose.
Was
Yeah.
that?
Yeah,
I was like, what was that?
yeah, yeah.
I thought it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, they did. It was cool. They did it. They did a
Yeah.
good job with it.
Um,
The thing that I read a lot was that the Victor Laszlo character
mhm.
was stiff.
Right.
A lot of critics said he was stiff, and he himself, Heinrich, is that his name? How do you say it?
I'd say Heinrich, but
Heinrich.
it could be Heinrich.
He characterized that character as being stiff too, and he felt like it negatively impacted his career later.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
because
Interesting.
they made him into someone who was very stiff.
Yeah. Um,
And what do you think, Dora?
I thought Paul Heinrich was okay. I mean, he wasn't too stiff. I mean, he was playing a character that was well, basically a leader of a resistance or something like
Right,
that,
right.
right?
Back then, when you think of movies from back then, you mostly think, okay, here's a movie, probably be pretty much all white people.
Yep, yep.
That's
Not
true.
so
That's
in this
true.
case.
Yeah.
Yeah, not so
Yeah.
in this case. Yeah,
Yeah, that's very true. I did see a lot of diversity
yeah.
in the film,
Very
and
cool. Yeah.
I thought that was cool.
Mhm.
Which was surprising to me, because I feel like a lot of the movies back in those times there wasn't much diversity.
Right.
And then when you go into Rick's Cafe, you see like so many different diversities.
Very international. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and there was actually a scene where someone sings in like Spanish, I think, one
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
singers there.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and one of the main characters, um, almost main characters, Sam. He's black. He's a
Yeah.
pianist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Had Asians there.
yeah, they had Asians there, and there was a scene where it was a tracking shot, and it would go from like different people, and then it passed the table. There was a table of Asians there.
Okay.
Yeah, and they were speaking in I think it was Chinese. I'm not sure, but
Mm.
yeah, some and yeah, and I was like, wow, I was really surprised. Yeah,
Unusual. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That was unusual
and
for that
I
day.
think they kind of used that in one of the scenes where there were a bunch of German officers in the bar
Mm.
or in the club,
Okay.
and they were so a bunch of Nazis are there, and they're playing the some Nazi music, right? And then And then they were soldiers.
Yeah,
I
the
think.
soldiers
Yeah.
were doing like almost an a cappella. I don't know if Sam was helping
No,
with that,
Sam
but
was not there. There was
it
actually a
was like kind
German
of an a
guy.
cappella, wasn't it? Or
No, no,
not?
actually, there was a German guy on a piano.
Oh, was there?
I guess he
Okay,
could play.
okay.
I'm sorry, Nazi. There was a
Yeah,
Nazi
yeah,
dude.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So there was a Nazi dude on the piano. They were
Okay.
like, doing some Nazi anthem or something.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then Victor Laszlo, the leader of the resistance,
Right.
he goes and he he tells the band to play. I think it was a French
Marseille.
yeah,
Yeah.
some anthem or
Yeah,
something.
the French anthem or
Yeah, to
something.
compete with them,
Right.
and they're each trying to compete and play their anthem louder than the other one. And what happens is everyone in the club starts getting into it, and they start going on the side of
Victor Laszlo.
Victor Laszlo, the
Yeah.
resistance fighter
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
or leader.
That
Yeah.
was a touching scene, and I read somewhere that the people in that scene, the actors who sang, many of them were real refugees from Nazi countries.
Oh, really? Wow.
Nazi-occupied countries.
Yeah, Nazi-occupied countries.
Wow.
So they were crying, and someone who was like on the set but not in the scene
Yeah.
said later that they couldn't have done that with just general casting because those people were so touched
Oh, wow.
by it. It made that scene one of the most touching scenes.
So it wasn't just acting.
Yes, it was called, that scene is called the Battle of the Anthems.
The Battle of the Anthems. I like that.
Yeah.
I thought that was a memorable scene.
Mark, did that also remind you of a Star Wars movie in a way?
It did. Well, several Star Wars movies have had a bar scene
Yes.
where, a lot of weird characters and voices and music.
Yeah, I didn't think
And
about
that. I
that.
liked that, and I really thought this movie is the prequel to the
Right.
bar scenes in Star Wars.
Right, right. I'm sure.
Star Wars cantina scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
I
sure.
really thought that.
I'm sure George Lucas was inspired by that.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
There was one scene that did remind me of a scene from Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
The scene where we first meet the Emperor in Return of the Jedi. He's coming off the ship. I think that's where we first meet him. Yeah, I think before he was like a hologram or something. Anyways, the scene where that top Nazi official comes off the plane and
Yes.
everyone's all lined up receiving
Yes,
him.
yes.
I was
Yeah.
like, and it just reminded me so much of that scene from Return of the Jedi. I was like,
Yeah.
I thought that was funny.
One other thing, though, is a lot of times I'm thinking, where do I even hear all these lines? I can't always pinpoint
Right.
where I hear all these references.
Right.
But one place that I know that I've seen some references to Casablanca was the sitcom British comedy called Red Dwarf.
Okay.
There's an episode called Camille
Yeah.
where they use the Casablanca movie to basically know how to solve one of their problems.
Oh,
Okay.
awesome.
And I don't want to necessarily give too much away about that, but
Yeah.
it's super central to the plot, and they definitely use some of the dialogue there. And one other thing I remember about Red Dwarf is there was another episode, this one is called Better Than Life, that makes this great joke about Casablanca, saying basically this show is about the future. It's a sci-fi show,
Okay.
and they're saying they're going to remake Casablanca.
Okay.
The main character gets very upset about that, and he says, what are they thinking? The definitive version of Casablanca was made in like 2050 or something like that. So they're basically saying, also, actually, it was remade and better already. That's
cute.
So what are they thinking, remaking it again?
That's cute. That's
Yeah.
cute.
This kind of joke is also kind of iconic. Like, I feel like that's the kind of idea that deserves a joke, but also is a real life concern. Like, we're kind of concerned they keep remaking
Yeah.
all these classics.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
really do a better job
Yeah.
if you remake a movie that was bad but could be much better? I can kind of get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, speaking of that, what were some of your guys' most memorable scenes? that you liked from the
movie.
movie?
I think the love story arc
Oh,
is
yeah.
the real heart of the movie and what really helps get everyone to connect with it. So I would say
Parts
the
of
whole is greater than the sum of its parts, for one thing.
Okay.
So how everything connects is important.
Okay.
It was really nice that they had a throwback to Rick's love life in the past in Paris. This guy is so cynical and he is stoic, not showing a lot of emotion, but in the past it shows that he did have emotion and he had love.
Yep.
That was interesting how
So
they
you
showed
see a whole
that.
other side of him.
It's really
was
true,
there.
yeah.
Totally,
That
yeah.
He usually,
Yeah.
it is implied that it's still there to some extent and he's trying to hide it. And
Yeah.
so that scene was very important.
Yeah.
And of course, later scenes with Humphrey Bogart playing Rick and Ilsa there together, trying to interact together, whether he's trying to show how unhappy he is with her or something a little bit more going on.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Those were some of your favorites.
Another scene I liked was when Ilsa came into his room.
Yeah.
Rick lived above the saloon.
Okay.
When she came into his room, and they went through a whole series of things. At one point, she pulls a gun on him, and another point, she's crying on his shoulder.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes through a vast
Yeah.
group of things within just a few minutes of the movie.
And it's very
very
important.
touching.
Yeah, their history together is very important.
Yep.
And for
Yes.
that scene,
Yes.
and their current emotions that they're dealing with,
Yes,
their current needs.
absolutely. It's absolutely right.
And what were some of your favorite scenes?
Well, you know my favorite scenes. They're all with Ingrid Bergman. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Yeah.
my goodness.
I mean, she was also really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was incredible. I thought it was great. Definitely. A real classic with memorable characters and a great story. I really enjoyed it. There were a lot of things. The way people talk, the way people acted back in those days, and I took myself out of the film sometimes, and just noticing how well it was crafted, like the lighting, the sound design, the editing, the interactions between all the characters, the character development of a lot of different characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also think this is a great movie. And it won Best Picture, and apparently I think it probably deserved it. I haven't seen all the movies from that year, though.
Oh, wow. Did it win Best Picture?
Yeah, it did.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, from 1942.
Yeah.
And to me, this is such an iconic, classic kind of movie from that time period.
Yeah.
It brings you to the time of World War II, 1942, around then.
Yeah.
The movie was made during the war, and they started working on it before the United States entered the war.
Right.
So these are people from that time, and you get to see what they were pretty much like at that time.
Yeah.
You get to hear how they talk, as you said before.
Yes.
And so it kind of brings you into this other world. The movie is kind of a fantasy, too. The Casablanca wasn't really like this movie, but it was still very well done. And so I would say the movie had a good story, it had good characters, and it had really good dialogue. So those are a few important characteristics of a movie.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And the storyline is touching. I mean, the fact that these people are so in love, and I won't spoil it, but various things happen between them over the course of the movie. It's very touching. I thought it was a fun movie. I like the fact that there's so many crowd scenes.
Oh,
In the beginning of the movie, there's a lot of crowd scenes when the voiceover is introducing us to Casablanca itself,
yeah.
but especially in Rick's Cafe. It's such an international cafe with people from all walks of life, all castes of life, and people from all heritages. It was very beautiful.